on the bioinformatics approaches to study the novel coronavirus. So, in today's session, we will be speaking about genomic data analysis and try to understand how data analysis tools can help study the causes and specific characteristics of this pathogen. We will be speaking about detection of viral genomes in NGS data, next generation sequencing data, of course, and also the data which is already being processed, the genomes that are already available, and also we will look into the protein sequences. So it will be a thorough analysis. So we'll be doing the analysis of assembled genomes to distinguish between viral strains and the characteristics of point mutations, which play a critical role in the evolution of these viruses, deletions and insertions to identify functional changes in the viral proteins. So in summary, we will review the current outbreak, the current outbreak in virology, in aspects of virology, but from a data perspective. So we will be looking at the data, and then we will be developing hypotheses based on that data. So as you know, I mean, we are at a really difficult time, and I remember last time we had this presentation. So this is the second session on COVID-19 genomic analysis. So the first session that we did, I mean, a week ago, last Friday, I remember the numbers that I showed you was 0.95 million cases. And you can just see here, I mean, in 1 week, so much of things have changed, and so many cases right now. And talking about a context like in India, things have changed as well. We have a lot more cases and a lot more deaths. So the world right now is in the grasp of this pandemic caused by novel coronavirus. So thousands of people, thousands of deaths. But we are heading towards some sort of crisis. But as a researcher, as a scientist, as a student, and as a collective citizen, there is so much we can do to contribute by understanding the coronavirus first, and then looking for strategies so that something like this does not happen that has already happened. So heading towards that, I mean, we started this journey quite a while ago, a couple of months ago, and together with our collaborators, we have been building a growing, online community of bioinformatician in training, ranging from high school students to faculty and researchers in top universities around the world. So our team offers like big data analysis tools, as Biksha has discussed already, and quality learning resources like these courses, projects, tutorials, etc. So in programs as this, which is designed around various topics, we discuss bioinformatics approaches for processing, analysis, integration, interpretation of multi-omics data. So multi-omics data in today's world is playing a huge role. I mean, if you have read the current articles that have been published, you would see that whether it is a field of oncology, whether it's a field of neuroscience, whether it's a field of agrobiology or infectious diseases, the multi-omics data plays a critical role in understanding the mechanistic details, finding interventions, etc. So I encourage you all to sign up for the free resources, and also if you like it, if you have developed an understanding, then we can work together and work together on several projects that we have. So in India, we recently collaborated with a couple of institutes who wants to take this forward and reach out to students and teach these courses, teach and go through the training with ourselves. One of such institute is Acube Life Sciences in Lucknow, and Bioinformatics Technologies of India in Bareilly. And I'm very glad to start a new collaboration, which we will be talking about later. That is a new collaboration, and we would be working in Sri Lanka as well. So that will be coming towards the end of the session. But for today's session, I mean, it's a start that is leading towards a bigger program. So as Beepsha said, that with our collaborators, we've been working relentlessly to work on several topics. One of the most important aspect of this collaborations is that we've been able to go in several directions. We have been working in developing platforms such as these. We have been contributing in vaccine development. So those informations we will be sharing soon in our blog, as Beepsha has shown. So today's session, as I said before, uh, so today's session is something that we are doing as an overview for the entire program. So in the next program, that is Bioinformatics for Infectious Diseases, we will be learning about several things. So some of it, if I may say, is that we'll speak about the SARS coronavirus and explore its origin as a zoonotic disease. A zoonotic disease is a disease that comes from animals to humans from a process called spillover. So we will be learning about endocytosis or cell fusion, by which the virus enters the human cell to replicate and then hijacks the cellular machinery for its own protein production and replication. Okay. And we will learn about several data analysis approaches for genomic data, including detection of viral genomes in NGS data, finding differences, identifying viral strains and haplotypes, finding mutations that characterize a viral strain and interpret its significance. And finally, I mean, in order to apply these various methods of analysis, we will need a lot of data, right? So we will explore various data sets related to current pandemic uh, and previous strains of coronaviruses like SARS, MERS, alpha and beta coronaviruses, coronaviruses in humans, animals, and from various geographical locations, uh, and also, you know, metagenomic samples from the host, because that also plays a critical role, and we can find very interesting correlations when we see the metagenomic data and try to identify organisms from it. So in brief, I mean, this introductory session is will be leading to a range of range of topics which will be broad and comprehensive. So we'll be working on several of these diseases, I think, and majorly all of these diseases have caused an outbreak. So we'll be working on Ebola data sets. We have already created several projects. So we will be working on those projects as well in this program. So before we go into today's session, I would like to review what we have covered before, because many of you have joined recently and joined for the first time this session. And one of the things that we did from the past couple of weeks is to, you know, send out free accounts, free demo accounts for everyone. So we have we have almost, well, we have almost issued 200 licenses so that everyone can practice. Just a second. I think someone is annotating the slides. If I can, yeah, shipping Zoom. I'm sorry about this. So as I was saying, that we are going to review what we have covered in the previous webinar. So let's just talk about what had happened so far, and how this outbreak has caused an severe, severe severe causes to us, and how this has changed over time, and why this coronavirus, because coronavirus has been there for a while. So before 2002, it was thought that coronaviruses cause only self-limiting and mild infection of the respiratory tract in human beings. So as I was saying, two of the coronaviruses considered during this time were beta coronaviruses, and the other one were alpha coronaviruses. So these coronaviruses are epidemic, and cause about 15 to 20%, 15 to 30% of infection in our respiratory tract each year. So this outbreak of severe acute respiratory syndrome, which is SARS, that happened before also in China in 2002 2003, was also caused by SARS coronavirus, a beta coronavirus. At that time, this outbreak was amongst the most severe illness that had occurred due to coronaviruses. So more than 8,000 people, were ill. So during this epidemic, researchers, obtained viruses that were closely related to SARS coronaviruses from various exotic animals, such as raccoon dogs, Himalayan, civets. But it's generally accepted that SARS coronaviruses was first found in bats, as it's pretty well known by now. So we were doing detailed investigation, and found out that mars coronaviruses, uh, MERS, which was found out in, I think, 2013, 2012, I think. Yeah, 2012. So this was called Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, MERS. So it caused a succession of highly pathogenic infection of the respiratory tract in Middle East. So during the initial stage of this outbreak, the illness was severe in many cases, but the outbreak did not accelerated in 2013, with only a few cases occurring throughout the year. So this gives us a kind of overview of how these viruses are different, which came out at different timeline and number of cases, etc. So talking about the current epidemic, there are several things we wanted to discuss, and one of the reasons for doing these free webinars is to help everyone understand about COVID-19 and the bioinformatics that is involved in analysis of COVID-19 and such other viruses. So one of the things that we can do is is to ask us ourselves is that what kind of question can be answered using the data, as I was telling you. So we think and we hypothesized based on the information that we know already, that is a general thing that we all do as a scientist, as a researcher, as a thinker, while doing all of the things that we do regularly. So we ask questions. So what questions can we ask? Which data set will answer the question? Because once we have a question which is not based on the data, so we go back and look at the data. So we have a question, for example, last time we discussed the origin of coronavirus, and we wanted the data to answer that. Like we would want that answer based on the data that from where the coronavirus originated, which species, how it originated, questions like that. So how to analyze the data to find signals, because we are looking at signals, because this data is very big, and this, to understand something out of it, is like to look for a signal out of nowhere. So we are looking for those signals by doing some sort of analysis, and then we want to interpret the results. So these are some of the things that we'll be covering uh, today also. So we started off last time by talking about genomes. For naturalism, diversity, changes over time, and find changes in DNA or RNA that can be linked to various diseases and traits, right? So such links can be direct. Such a change, I mean, for example, a change in structure as a result of a mutation that changes a protein surface. I'm just giving you examples for you to visualize. So a mutation that can change the protein surface, that could lead to, that could benefit the virus in a way, because these mutations are happening so rapidly. And most of the time, I mean, because the population of these viruses are so high, I mean, even a few mutations could lead to the benefit of the virus. So we will be talking about those as well. So last time we discussed what is the origin of novel coronavirus. Why we discussed this is because it's kind of a question that we wanted to ask from the data, right? We talked about it as the origin, and we started looking at one of the sequences that was deposited of this novel coronavirus. So as you see in the slide, you'd look at the length. We discussed this last time as well. So the sequence is deposited in NCBI with a specific length of 3000, almost 3000 base pairs, and there are several genomes that have been deposited so far. So you can look at the genome, and you can look at the sequences, and again you can look into the sequences that code for different proteins. So we have that sort of data. Now the question is, like, from that data, how can I find out the origin of the novel coronavirus? How does it came to us? Did it came to us through a host, primary host like bat, which was which was thought of, or it came through some intermediate host? So these are the questions that we started to look into, and we looked into a publication, a cell publication, no sorry, a Nature Medicine publication, which was to compare the novel coronaviruses genomes to other genomes. So the first thing that we do as a bioinformatician, or the first thing that we do with this sort of new data, is to compare. We start doing comparisons. So in this approach, which we discussed last time about in this publication, which talks about the proximal origin of SARS coronavirus, which was published in March. It's a very simple analysis, So from a standpoint of a few sequences, so let's look at these sequences. As we saw last time, in here they did a multiple sequence alignment. For those who don't know about multiple sequence alignment or sequence alignment, so as the word says, alignment, so we are aligning, here we are aligning a string of letters. So multiple sequence alignment means we are aligning more than one string of letters. So these letters are amino acids, which are from different genomes, from different viruses. So the first one is from the current outbreak, human host SARS coronavirus, beta coronavirus. And the second one is from bat. The third one is from pangolin, which is another career of this virus. And it has been hypothesized that it could have been originated through pangolin, or maybe it was also hypothesized that it came from an intermediate host, like from bat to pangolin to humans. So something like that. The fourth one is human SARS coronavirus, which is the old one. and we have two from bat coronaviruses. So we started our analysis by looking at these sequences. So as you see that based on these, we take these six sequences, and we did, the author did a multiple sequence alignment to see the differences amongst these. So after doing that, I mean, one of the things, as I was telling you, is what a bioinformatician do is to compare sequences, is to compare things to understand how the new one is different from the old one, because we know something, more information is there about the sequences that has been already present, like the protein that the sequence encode for. So we can compare the protein sites, right? Sorry. So this is the receptor binding domain alignment that you can see. And if you see the highlighted panel here, it shows that there is an insertion that had happened in the new coronavirus. So we will be looking into that in much more detail in while we do our analysis, our hands-on analysis today. So we did last time we did talked about the phylogenetic analysis last time. And phylogenetic analysis is something which we do frequently to learn about the relationships. So we discussed also last time why phylogenetic analysis, because phylogenetic analysis uses a probabilistic model, many times different, mathematical models. Like one of the example is Bayesian model, which we discussed last time. And based on that, it does it predicts a timeline, and gives us a good visualization, different kind of visualization, which talks about the origin, or how these organisms, or how these viruses are different from each other. If they are related, then how they are related to each other, based on the sequence information. So it's very important to get these sequence information. So another thing that we discussed, which is an important part to go through and to learn about these sort of analysis, starting from sequences, by understanding how these sequences came into the existence. So we have here, like in a phylogenetic tree, different parameters, like what we call it, we call this a node, we call this a branch, we call this taxon and clade. So as I was saying, that different methods have different parameters which you can play around, and that yields a different visualization. Maybe sometimes it improves the relationships as well, because as you know, these algorithms vary from each other. Sometimes one sort of algorithm works well with one kind of a data, and henceforth. So the important thing is to try different ways, and to find out, like which is the one that is coming over and over. So one of the way to do that is something that we'll be looking at today. But I mean, what I'm trying to say is that from the number of things, from the number of algorithms, from number of approaches, we have to find the best visualization on the best tree, for example, here. So this is one of the challenges that a bioinformatician face, or a researcher face, while doing analysis or while going through the data. So last time also we discussed that how the sequences come into existence, as I was telling you about how we how we obtain these sequences. So the first thing that I would want to mention is that these sequences, of course, do not come to us in a assembled format, right? We do have a full sequence just coming out of a sample that we collect, and therefore we have to first of all assemble these genomes together. So the way that this would typically be done, and here, for example, we can start thinking of these approaches. So we have this project example. So if we are comparing and trying to map a particular sequence, for example, I have sequenced my genome, and I have to compare a particular, uh, amino acid or a protein from my sample with a human reference genome. So there's a pretty good chance that my protein, which is in my body and compared to a reference genome, will have a good match. So I'm assuming that it has, similarity, because as you see, as you know, like 99% of our genomes are identical, and those differences that are there, like those very few differences that are there, makes us different, and those smart mutations that are happening in these viruses are making them different. So this is a very important thing that we should consider, is that how these differences lead to such changes that are so devastating, right? So one of the challenges that I wanted to discuss in the slide is that sometimes what happens is that when we are aligning these sequences from patient samples. For example, we have samples from lung fluid, or maybe from saliva, or fecal sample. So these samples are coming from different hosts, also from if it's coming from single host, for example human, but different conditions, right? So what happens in such cases, that what we see and what we sometimes find out, that these the sequences that we have got from these samples do not match to our reference genome. So that is like a problem, that there is no similarity that we can look into. So there comes a concept of quasi species, which we discussed last time also. So this is pretty important to do, because we'll be using this as well. So one of the things with this is that we usually, what we do is we produce a new FASTA file that have a collection of samples, or from one sample, but I mean, that does not reflect the complexity of viral population. So we have to, we have to consider several of these viruses and then combine into one assembled genome, and then we use that sequence to do the analysis or to learn about it. So that's what is viral quasi species. So in this publication, which we will go through in much more detail in the upcoming program, we'll be discussing how to do that using the platform, because we have this already available on the platform, so that you have a raw read, or you're coming from you're generating data, so you want to do a correct analysis, which has been standardized over time, with many people coming and facing issues and then evolving. So we try implementing those processes and those procedures to help streamline this whole process. Last time we discussed, we went and discussed about the repositories, right? We get this data, big data is coming up a lot more. This is an older slide, which has like almost 1500 sequences. Now, if you look into the beta coronavirus, we have like the 3000 sequences. So, links such as these are very helpful, because one of the important aspect, as I'm trying to say over and over, is that we are developing a hypothesis based on the data. So first thing we should do is to know that what kind of data is available. So to do that, we can go to these sites, these websites. I will be sharing a lot many resources and very useful resources that I looked up and collected for you all. So I'll be sharing those links as well. So in this session, we will be looking into the data set. So the data set that we have downloaded last time is from NCBI virus repository. You can simply Google NCBI virus and you'll be able to find this one. So one of the way, I mean, that we can ask that question that we said earlier. So the problem here, what we are looking at is we are trying to ask a question out of the data. Like what kind of question I can find? How can I find answers from this data? So how can I find a cure? how can I find a mechanistic detail about this virus, is something that it is doing new, something that it is something that is not known. So how we do those things? So one of the way we can ask that question is by selecting specific genomes from available gene bank accession numbers, to be able to compare from example different hosts. For example, different hosts, if you can see here, if you have different hosts, you have different demographies, you have you know regions. So there are several questions that can come up from the data itself, right? And what is the purpose? I mean, we have to group them first to see why, how they are related. So I'll just take a pause here. There are some questions which I wanted to see. Okay. Okay, no, there are no questions. So let me continue. So here we have collected data from all of the data, all beta coronaviruses genome. And here, what you can see is the data only from the current outbreak. So we have two data sets here, one with all the beta coronaviruses, and one with this Wuhan outbreak data. Now, what we can do further here is to, go to the platform and learn about the things that we did last time. So, so there are two sections in the platform. So let me go to the platform. So if you, Deepsha, have you shared the link?
Yes, I've shared. I'm sharing again.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to say to everybody, if you're requesting access right now, trying to log in without us sending you access, you won't be able to log in there. We will be creating accounts for you and emailing them to you. For others who have received their access already, please go there. And as you see that Mohit is already logged in, you will find there's a login button. You can log in via the username and password that has been emailed. Thank you.
So last time, what we did is we tried to do find out the relationship between some of the strains, right? And I showed you, I mean, how to build a pipeline, and I gave you an assignment to look into these uh, output of the pipeline. So we will be going to repeat it again, so that whosoever has received the logins can start the analysis with me here, and start answering one of the questions that we asked today. We have asked a question about the origin of the virus, right? And we are looking to find solutions by using data analysis, by downloading the genomes, and then by using the platform to learn the insights from that data. So let me go to the platform. As you see, we have several sections that we already talked about in the virus quasi species section. So we have the pipeline. You can see the detailed information about the pipeline in the pop-ups here. So we'll start the pipeline, and the first thing we want to do, let me just go back to show you the input data. So when I start, it's already a build pipeline. So usually what happens is, when I start, I can build an when I'm working on new data, or when I'm doing some experimental research, we have we have
Hello, everyone. I hope you all can hear me. Dr. Mazumdar's internet is having an issue. We'll be looking into this and just getting back to you. Thank you so much for your patience.
I'm sorry about that. Deeksha, can you hear me now?
Yes, Mohit, I can hear you now.
I'm really sorry, guys. I'm having some issues today. I mean, with internet. I don't know why, but there is no justification for this, because there is no problem it's showing, but still, I mean, it's not loading. So I have turned the hotspot. I hope this will work now. So yeah, sorry about that. So let's start again. As I was, you guys were able to see this before when I showed earlier.
Mohit, I think you might have to start over. We heard you only, just you were talking about just the beginning. So probably you need to walk us through again.
Sure, no problem. So let's look at the things again. So as I was telling you, there are several sections here, and we have a virology section specifically dedicated to infectious diseases, and this has been developed in collaboration with Stanford University and UCSF, with Pine Biotech and Tauber Bioinformatics Research Center. So in this section, I mean, we can start doing our own analysis when we click here, and we can start, uploading data and start doing our analysis from the NCBI using NCBI run table option. So this will give you do several things using different pipelines, where you can actually where you can actually go from raw reads to different sort of analysis in one pipeline, look at the mutations or do those different things. So I have several things planned for today, so I'm running a little late. So let me start this pipeline. So no, this is a research pipeline. So let us go to the demo pipeline. Yeah. So when I click start, as I was telling you that we have already uploaded data. So what data we have uploaded is four type of viruses and a reference genome. So beta coronavirus 1, which is the old one, and COVID-19 is the current outbreak, the current genomes, and MERS, as I was telling you, the Middle East respiratory virus, which originated in Saudi Arabia, and this SARS, and we have this reference genome as well. Okay, so let's just start the analysis. We wanted to do, multiple sequence alignment first. We discussed why multiple sequence alignment, and here we will click on it. So before I start, there are like several sections. There are two sections here. Like we are more interested in this section because the data we have uploaded are already like genomic sequences. So they are not raw reads. When you are uploading raw reads, then you can have these sort of quasi species. We are, as I was telling you, that several assemblies into one assembly, stuff like that. So those things can be done when you have raw reads. But here we are not starting from the raw reads. We are starting from the sequence files. So those sequence files, I have also downloaded them to show you guys, I mean, how they are. So these are link files, SVL files that has linked to these FASTA files. So these are FASTA files that have been deposited in the server already for learning. So we'll start here. I started already. So we'll do MSA, multiple sequence alignment of these genomes. And then we will do for codons, as I was telling you last time, that these are like genomes. So we have to look for the coding region. So this is for that. And then this is for the codon. Now we have these sections that we described before, where the sections where you can do phylogenetic analysis. So that's what we are trying to do here, is to look into the relationships amongst these sequences that we have submitted. So what we can do is, we have four methods described here. We can run all the four methods by choosing this one. So all phylogenetic methods. Okay. And tree space is a algorithm that that helps in deciding the best tree out of all of these methods, because you will get a lot of trees. And then I will start push end. So when we do run this pipeline, we are inputting a lot of data, and then we are doing several type of analysis. So we are doing multiple sequence alignment. Then we are doing multiple sequence alignment of amino acids. So this is converting. These are because these are codons, and then we are these are nucleotides, and then we are converting them into amino acids, and then we are looking for the codons and doing building a multiple sequence alignment. And based on that multiple sequence alignment, we are building phylogenetic trees. So as I said, there are four methods involved in this information of these phylogenetic trees. Now what we have is number of output files. So you see there are several output files that we have got out of this analysis. Now let's look at the result. Let's go back to the presentation where I have already compiled the results. So one of the assignments was, for you, is to replicate this process and start analyzing the data. As I was telling you that I have already compiled the results for you to learn from. So let's look at some results from the analysis we just did. So this is an example where we have taken all the available sequences. So if you remember, I told you that there are two scenarios. One where we have taken all the sequences, and one where we have just taken the Wuhan outbreak sequences, right? And it's fairly easy to do this because you already have uh, a systematic process to go through which gives you results, and then we have this result, right? So this is what we did last time on this so we compared several sequences. So this is an example where we have taken all the available sequences, right? So we here we have all of the sequences from mars, beta coronaviruses, SARS, and novel coronavirus virus from Wuhan. So what we will see here is that all of them are from a single host. So we have taken from from humans only. So all of them are from humans, and we want to understand what is the relationship between different known strains of viruses. So what we see here is that Wuhan coronavirus 19 is the closest to SARS. So it's not closest to the older one, which is beta coronavirus 1, which came before, but it is closest to SARS. But I mean, this is not the only information that you get from this tree. So it shows us a process, so that we have here like 4 algorithms. So it shows us a process where we are studying relationships, right? So to study the relationship, it shows us the relationship in terms of time. That is very important. So this time is determined by one of these methods. For example, uh, beast is the name of the algorithm or the tool, and in beast there is this birth death process. So birth death is a most popular in evolutionary studies. The Yule is a birth date special case. So here is here it is expected that organisms are dying in birth death process. So the population size is which means the population size is not constant. So in this case, in the case virus case, the size is almost constant. So therefore I think this method will work, is a good option in this case. But I mean, we can talk about more and more in the upcoming program about these how these algorithms work, and why they are suiting for a particular purpose that I also discussed later. So so let's look at some of the results from this analysis which we did, and we found out that this is the separation. I mean, they MERS is totally coming from a different branch node, and there are different clades which you can see are grouped into these different groups. But one thing you would see is that there is only one sequence here and several sequences for these different groups. So the because we took data from all the data. So another approach would be to take selective data. So another type of analysis that we can do is to be able to select specific sequences, right, that we have. And when we do multiple samples from COVID-19, right, so we had one sequence in the previous one. Here we have more sequences from COVID-19. So we are what we are trying to do here is that we are comparing group of sequences from SARS, MERS, beta coronavirus 1, COVID-19. So we see a different kind of a phylogenetic tree, right? I would like to pause here for a while, and I would like to ask if anyone has any doubt or a question so far, because never had this Q&A. So let's please write it in the chat if you have any questions. So what we are trying to do here is that there are multiple sequences from different organisms, and we are trying to connect this information. I mean, we connect this sequence information to the origin. So that is the question that we are trying to ask, right? So these are excellent questions. This is what is one of the purpose. So COVID-19 sequences are from different samples from one country or different countries. So as I showed you, the first one, different demographics, yes, different countries. What does the beta coronavirus one? We will look into this. So one of the purpose is to, if I go back, so this is the green box that you're talking about. So if you see here, I mean, we can trace back to the IDs and we can see that how, what is the origin, because we have the list here, right? So once you have the list here, you can actually go back and see, I mean, how these things, how can we answer the questions that you have asked. So we will be doing that as well. Before that, I would like to discuss a few things. So let's take a look at an analysis of bunch of these different coronaviruses from the relationship perspective. So here we see the human coronavirus from Hong Kong, HKU1, one of which is a beta coronavirus. You can see that it was discovered in 2005 in two patients in Hong Kong, and so here we have beta coronavirus 1, which is again very closely related, right? So beta coronavirus 1, and here is our sample, uh, which is the novel coronavirus. So this is the beta coronavirus, and this is the human coronavirus, and SARS and MERS. So in this phylogenetic analysis, where you can see the distances, what can you understand from this sort of analysis? So we understand that these viruses acted differently, and how they can be seen in different timelines with different outbreaks that had happened. So some outbreak happened in 2003, 2004, 2012, the MERS. So how we can link this information into the questions that you've been asking. So I'm going to take you to an amazing site which will answer your questions, the kind of questions that you asked me today. So that website is called Nextstring. So I will just put this information in the chat box so that you can also go here, and let's go here. Open link. So in this link, there is not only one beta coronavirus, but there are several different type of viruses that you can look, and there is a timeline. So let me just zoom out a little bit. So Now I think it's visible. Is it visible? So Sana is asking, what is the main difference in, that is a good question. And that is the question that we are looking at. By comparing the sequences, we are looking at the differences. We are looking at the mutations. We are looking at the mechanistic changes that had happened due to those mutations. And when we are comparing these different types of coronaviruses from the same family, yes, we are looking at, okay, it's open. Okay, great. So here, I mean, it's a great place to look at, how this started. So if I start play, so as you see, it started from China, and this is the phylogenetic analysis. So this is a genomic analysis. So what you can see here is that how the relationships are changing based on the timeline. So based on the timeline as well as the places where the sample has been collected from. So here you can see there are small movements. Still now, till now it is in China. Now the sequences that have been, came up, now it is going to Australia and Thailand and other places. So these are the sequences, and mutations are happening here because you can see that they are diverging. So the virus is evolving here. Here, as you see, starting from 2019, this virus has evolved, right? So accumulation of mutations in these genomes and their evolution, and you can play here. I mean, you can play with it here, and how it occurred, link the data at a genomic level to the spread that happened over time, right? So here you can see that, I mean, from China now it is going all over the place. And now, I mean, now that you understand multiple sequence alignment, so this is very important. This shows you the accumulation of mutations, the important mutations or the mutations that had happened, I mean, over time. So what sort of mutations have happened? I mean, this is all that information is here. So this is the frequency of mutation. This is the different uh, regions that code for the proteins. So as you see, the samples, as more and more samples are coming, and you see there are different relationships, and there are different variations amongst the virus itself. So what I'm saying is that the virus is not the same that started back here. The virus has evolved in different places. The sequences have shown mutations, and yet it is, causing all that problem. So you can understand how intelligent this molecule or small molecule is, because how it manipulates our immune system, and make all those things. So it's very interesting if you look into this data, and you can change different things. You can, put a range. There are several things you can do. So I will be really happy if you guys can browse through it and learn more, and get answers for your questions, and also come up with great questions. So yeah, now it's all over the place: Australia, Japan, Europe. Okay, let's go back to the presentation now. So I would expect you guys to check this out. How this accumulation of mutations can affect the efficacy of the vaccine. Well, it depends on the strategy, the kind of strategy we are looking for. Because what is happening here, Amar, is that the mutations are happening in the virus, right? So what if we block something that is in the human? So where the virus is attaching itself. So if you do something on the human counterpart, we are not evolving as we are not mutating as fast as the virus. So that remains constant. So that could be one of the that is one of the strategy where for vaccine and efficacy, because when it comes down to the virus, it is changing very rapidly. It's a good question. Thank you. Okay, now go back to the resources. So the next slide is something. This is something that I would want you to look at. So some of the resources which we have already shown, but I want you to check out some of the better resources, even better resources that we will be showcasing in the next slides. So as we showed you, this is the regions, different regions and assembly. It shows how this whole 10,000 base pairs codes for different regions. So one of the resources is Sequence Nav, which we have developed. So let me share this link, and Bipsha, can you share this? Yeah, here you go. So in Sequence Nav, I mean, it's one of the place where you can, and as I was telling you, this is Nexttrain is one of my favorite places to be. So we have developed this platform that can help link all of the information together. So here you can see how this tells this bin size are showing the, this is the reference genome, which is the beta coronavirus, which is the current one, COVID-19. And this is the alignment with so there are 44 different assemblies here, and you can play around with it. So it's still not loading, it's taking a lot of time. So we have structural information here, we have sequence information here, and you can look at the mutational hotspots also using this link. So there are several things you can do with this information, and if you're interested in learning more about the virus and its genome and all the information that can be extracted to lead to such a signal which we are looking at. So there are different algorithms that have been used to come up to this one, and what we are trying to do here is to develop similar platforms for different type of analysis, which we will be doing it in our upcoming program. So please go to this link. So it's coming up slowly, but you will see something like this. I think in the next webinar, I will give you a demonstration of how Sequence Nav works. And it's a very useful tool to look at just not the sequences, but also the structural aspect and how things are changing in the structure that is leading to such efficient viruses in their own term. So NCBI virus is another place where you can go and learn about these viruses, as we started off with NCBI virus and we collected some of the data from here. But I am going to share a couple of links which are developed here in India by some of the top scientists here, which is going to be very useful for you if you want to, if you want to learn more about the genomes. So one of the top labs, Dr. Vinod Sakaria, so he has as you see, I have put a Google link here. So if you would go into this link, you will find out that they have a comprehensive collection of the genomes from across the world in, and they have put it into one place. So it's a great place to go and find out everything. Just not that, they have also given a process. How do you go from raw reads, which algorithms you can use. So if you are using open source algorithms and have a computational facility
Oh,
and
we
being
cannot see your screen. Have you stopped sharing?
no, wait. So there are a few questions here which I missed out. Is there any possibility of SARS evolving from SARI? Okay. SARS, I think. So can bioinformatics be used to know the reason of mutation, as in which mutagen has caused the mutagenesis of the original beta virus? So Anuja, I think one of the reasons this virus is mutating so much is because of the host also. So if you know, I mean, the original one of the original hosts is the bat, and what happens in bat is that bat has a very high metabolism, high metabolic rate. The temperature of bat is usually high. So the virus, when it is inside when it is residing with the bat, it has to struggle a lot for its own survival, because it's difficult, I mean, circumstances for it to survive. So what happens in that scenario is that the virus start replicating because of the stress, and that is one of the key reasons that this happens so often with these viruses. I hope that I have answered some part of your question, but yeah. So as I was telling you, the one of the resources is sequence nav. So I have some loading problems, so it's still not coming up. So I'll not be able to show you the structural details. But in the next session, I will be surely showing you the sequence nav. So another resource that I was discussing was this one. I mean, where we have the list of all the genomes. And thanks to Dr. Vinod, I mean, he has this link, and maybe you can go to this link and find a lot of good resources that you can utilize if you're interested in learning about the. If you go to this link, Amar, you will find out the find you will get into this site, and then in here here if you click, you will get this spreadsheet where which has all the collection. Okay, another important resource is this one. So this is Dr. GPS Raghava. He is again one of the leading okay, so, severe acute respiratory illness. Thank you for clearing that up, Purva. Yes, I think that's a good question that you have. I think it came to me privately, but yeah, it's a good question, Purva, because based on the sequence, we can totally look into this. The sequences from Maharashtra, if we have sequences from Maharashtra, of course. So another repository that I was talking about is Coronavir. So one of the co-author is this is from doctor's GPS Raghava's lab, and there's a lot of information if you go to this website. So let me take you to this website. So as you see, from drug designing aspects, from genomic aspects, if you click genomics, you will find out you'll get a lot of genome sequences here. China, US. There's no from. There are a couple from India also. This is a good place to start. I think you guys can download these ones. Okay, I'm sharing the link again. Yeah, this is the link. So yeah, so here you will get a lot of information. So this is another good place to start looking. So one of the assignments that I would like to give you guys is to, curation of relevant data sets on COVID-19. So I gave you good places to look into the data sets. Now, like Purva came up with one question, you guys can also come up with a question in the next session where you can tell me that this is the data set that you have collected and this is the question that you are asking from that data set. So would it be possible for you guys? Because you have the information. I mean, you just have to look into the data set. Thank you, Amar. Yeah, you just have to look into the data sets and download and think that what kind of question I have. So one of the important thing is to look into the data. I mean, which place, where it is coming from, which origin, which demography, which host. When you think about these sort of questions, then definitely you can come up with one of the questions. If you look into this sort of data, you dimag mein aata hai sawal, you will be able to think about different kind of questions out of this. So I think that would be a great start if you guys can contribute as a citizen science initiative. So another thing that I wanted to announce, so this actually ends our session today. I mean, in a way that I've been really glad that all of you are here and I want to contribute and do more out of this. So one of the things that we are doing in Sri Lanka is that we have recently launched our this new program in collaboration with Nischay in Sri Lanka. So where we will be, starting the same program with the help from the team there. So you can find out more information from this website. And we are also working with other institutes, as I told you. So if you know anyone in Sri Lanka, and if you are in Sri Lanka, so this is one of the better places to go and start the learning. And as you see, as I told you, that if you are in India and if you are looking for additional support in assistance with language, so many people are more comfortable in Hindi. Some of the aspects they don't understand, and if they want to some sort of support in Hindi, so we have starting this new collaboration with Acube Life Sciences, where the sessions will be done by us in English, but then you get an additional support from Acube Life Sciences in translation and understanding some of the concepts which are not clear due to the differences in language. So you can join this one for Hindi. And one of our collaborators, or a group of collaborators that we have, BioClue is a society, uh, BioClue Society, which we are working closely with them, and they are a great society in India, whom they are working on several aspects. So you can join this workshop as well. So this will be coming up on 13th. So as I was telling you, Vinod Sakaria will be there, and Srinivasan, and all very highly knowledgeable experts will be there to discuss the known unknowns of COVID-19, and where you will be, there will be interaction and you can ask many questions here. So I think it would be great if you can go into this and join this event as well. So as I was telling you, BioClues are our collaborators, and we have been working together on several domains of bioinformatics education and research. So they are providing a great help to the society by conducting several of these things. So please join them. And if you are a bioinformatician, I think this is one of the best places to be. And with that, I would like to conclude today's session. And if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask us. And we will be conducting our next session next Friday. And we will be moving next to the next stage after this session. We will be discussing more on the structural aspects, vaccine development, and also the sequences. I mean, because it is all starting from the sequences, and then we are moving to the structural aspects. So thank you everyone, and have a nice weekend.